Hi there, for today's video we are going to be reviewing realistic fiction. Now I know we've gone over realistic fiction before, but today we're going to go over it and we're going to go over it with a little bit more detail than last time. So, what is realistic fiction? I'm going to give you a moment to think about it. Realistic fiction. All right, realistic fiction is whenever you have stories that are made up but could happen in real life. So the ways you can figure out whether or not the story you're reading or listening to is a realistic fiction is by the characters, setting, and events. If you are noticing the characters, the people and animals in the story, the people act and talk like real people, that's a good clue it's a realistic fiction. If the animals act like pets or other real animals, so they're not talking to each other and they're not standing up on their back legs and they're not dressed like people are, if they're not doing that and they're acting like real animals would, then that's a good clue that this story might be a realistic fiction. Now the setting. If the setting is a place that could be real in today's world, then that's a good clue also that the story is realistic fiction. For example, we have a school, a beach, a park, grocery store, a home. Those are all real places in today's world. Now, the big one is events. So, events are the different things that are happening throughout the story, right? So, the events could really happen. So, if it's a birthday party or a soccer game or a class play, something like that, those are events that could really happen, right? Or maybe visiting a friend. Those are things that could happen. Characters have problems that real people might have. So maybe the character accidentally tripped over their untied shoelace, or maybe they lost a pencil, or maybe they forgot their lunch at home, or maybe they dropped water on their homework. Those are all things that could really happen, right? Okay? And then the problems get resolved. So whatever the problem may be, it's not going to be solved by magic, because that's not real. It's going to get solved like a normal problem would. For example, if you drop water on your paper or your homework, you could always ask an adult for another paper, right? That's a way a problem can get resolved. So we got to focus on characters, setting, and events. If all of these seem that they could be real, then the story most likely is realistic fiction. Let's go ahead and go over these words to better understand what realistic fiction is. So realistic fiction, they're stories that are made up but could really happen. That's what we just went over. Now, did you know realistic fiction is a type of genre? Remember last week we talked about biography and we're like, that's a genre. Well, a genre is a type of writing like fiction, biographies, realistic fiction, informational text, fantasy, fables. They're just different types of writing, okay? So biographies, we learned last week, are stories about real people, okay? Now this week we're focusing on realistic fiction. And these are stories that are made up, but they seem like they could actually happen in real life, okay? Now, here's a big one that we have not talked about. Literary text. Got to say that? Literary text. Great job. Literary text is a type of writing that tells a made-up story, okay? So it tells a made-up story. Since a realistic fiction story is made up, it is a literary text. I know that seems kind of confusing, so let's say it again. Realistic fiction stories are made up. So what that means is the stories that we are going to be reading this week, they're an example of literary text, because literary text is a type of writing that tells a made-up story. Does realistic fiction tell made-up stories? Yes, so it's a type of literary text. Now, I just wanted to introduce you to this word. If it's a little confusing or you need more time to think about it, that's okay. I just wanted to introduce you to this word. So that's okay. We'll go over this word throughout the week. But let's go ahead and look at a literary text or realistic fiction that we have already read before. Does this look familiar? Blackout. We've read this, I think, once, and I believe you read this with another teacher as well. So this book right here is a great example of realistic fiction. The story's made up, but all the different things that are happening in the story could actually happen. The characters act and talk like real people. The animals, I don't know if there is any animals, I don't remember. Well, here's a little cat, so all the animals act like pets or other real animals would. And the setting, which is a city and it's a apartment complex, those could be real places, right? So this is a great example of a realistic fiction. And if you need a little reminder on what this story was about, it was just a family and they're hanging out in their home, and then all of a sudden all the lights go out throughout the whole city. That's called a blackout. And so those actually really do happen in real life. And so what they do is they just get their flashlights out and they go they leave their home and they all go hang out, and all their neighbors are there and they're just hanging out and having a good time and just waiting for the lights to come back on. So what I'd like to do now is I would like to go over realistic characters and unrealistic characters. Realistic characters are characters, the people and the animals in the story, they behave like animals would or pets would, or they behave like people would, okay? They behave and act. Unrealistic characters, they're going to be made up, not real, okay? So if I give you an example and I read it to you and you're like, okay, that seems realistic, like a realistic character, you're going to give me a thumbs up. Or if I give you an example and you're like, that is not realistic, that's unrealistic, thumbs down. So show me what you would do for a realistic character. Good, thumbs up. What would you do for unrealistic characters? Good, thumbs down. All right, let's go ahead and start sorting. So right here, here's the first one. A green alien. Is that a realistic character or unrealistic character? Good, that is an unrealistic character. It's going to be made up. Let's grab one from over here. Magical leprechaun. Is that a realistic character or a unrealistic character? Good job. Unrealistic character. Let's put that over here. Okay. Ooh, a jealous sister. Think of different stories where you may have heard another sister saying, hey, I want that, that's mine, or something like that, a jealous sister. That is a realistic character. I read different stories where some of the sisters or brothers are a little bit jealous, and that's just maybe the problem in this story, okay? An old man in a house. An old man in a house. Does that seem to be a realistic character or an unrealistic character? Good, that is an example of a realistic character. Let's put that right here. I'm running out of little room. Okay, a unicorn. Is that a realistic character or a realistic, character or unrealistic? Okay, good job. That's an unrealistic character. I know unicorns are so fun to read about, but that's an unrealistic character. Those usually are in fantasy stories. Second grade boy. So, well, could there be a second grade boy? What if the story is about a school and there's first grade boys and girls and second grade boys and girls? Can that be a realistic character or unrealistic character? Good job, realistic character. A mean friend. Right here, this one. A mean friend. Can there be a story where there's a friend and there be an unkind, a mean friend, not very nice? Is that a realistic character or an unrealistic character? Good job. That is an example of a realistic character. All right, a wizard. Right here. Is this an example of a realistic character or an unrealistic character? Great job. This is an example of a unrealistic character. Great job. So I hope this little sort from realistic characters to unrealistic characters helped you better understand this right here, characters, what a realistic character and the people and the animals in the story look like, right? So one more time, realistic fiction. Stories are made up, but could really happen. So today we focus on the characters. So remember, people act and talk like real people. Animals act like pets or other real animals. And one more thing I want to mention is whenever you have a realistic fiction, do you know what the author's purpose is? Remember, it can be persuade, inform, or entertain. Do you know what the author's purpose is usually for realistic fiction? To entertain. The main purpose for realistic fiction stories like Blackout is just to entertain the reader. All right, I hope you enjoyed today's little video.